I got to tell you some things. I'm living in a grand secret, but let me tell you something. Gotta snap my fingers every day. Rhythm in my mouth,
It's all the way you look at it, you know.
Got a handful of nothing.
Why, you a rich millionaire.
But I watch it like a hawk. Well, I'm doing okay, living in a great big way.
Tell that to the landlord.
I'm the salt in the ocean. I'm the sun way up in the sky.
Oh, no.
I'm a Franklin D. Roosevelt. I'm $1 million long as I got a snap in my fingers, rhythm in my voice. Got the devil's his baby, living in a great big way.
Oh, technology. My name is Paul Evans. I am with the Children's Library here, and I'm very, very happy to see so many people come out on such a rainy afternoon. We do have very special guests this afternoon. Vancouver's own Jeni LeGon, a tap dancer with a very, very long history, both on live stage and in the movies. And the author, Nancy Haver, who's come all the way from Massachusetts to join us today. The both of them will come up here and speak to you about their relationship, how they got together, about Jeni's history, and we will, in the background, have the DVD playing, and at a certain point, turn up the volume so you can hear the whole thing. Okay. Thank you very much. Please welcome Jeni and Nancy.
Hello, everybody. Hello. How are you? Good, thank you. Thank you for coming out in the rain. And I just want to tell you one thing, if I may. When we turn the TV back on, the number that you will see with Lena Horne is the number that I wrote. It's called the Sping, S-P-I-N-G, meaning a combination of Spanish and swing. And the Berry brothers, who are very, very famous dancers, are working with him. I wrote all of the lyrics and I staged it. And my former husband, whose name was Phil Moore, who wrote Shoo Shoo Baby, I'm sure some of you know that song, in the Second World War, he wrote the music. So when we turn the TV back on, you'll see this number. But I want to tell you that this young lady here, Nancy Haver, please. She's what I call a dreamboat. She is so wonderful. Incidentally, how do you like the book? Say what? Oh no, you don't like it?
Haven't read it yet.
Isn't it beautiful? Yes. Isn't it beautiful? That's Haver's work. Thank you. She's just wonderful. Now listen, I'm going to tell you real fast how we met. I answered the phone one afternoon, and this voice said, "Are you Jeni LeGon?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I wanted to tap dance for a long time, but I haven't bothered. But I recently started, and I'm taking from a teacher who knows all about you. And so now I'm interested in what you do." And so then she said she was going to send me something, and I wanted to put, you know, what. But anyway, it turned out that those pictures over there on the wall on the left-hand side, we talked and everything. And then September last year, she was supposed to come here and take my bow wow classes, which was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the studio here. And she got caught up in the mess down in New Orleans and couldn't make it. So after she came here on Sunday and she went home, did you say 3 weeks?
Maybe 6 weeks.
No, it wasn't that long. It was about 3 or 4 weeks. And she called me and she said, "I want to write a book about you." And I said, "What?" And she says, "I want to write a book about you." And I said, "Well, I'm writing my own autobiography, and I haven't finished it yet, but I am writing." She said, "Oh, mine would be different." And this is what she sent me, ladies and gentlemen, this glorious book. And when I received it, as she says 6 weeks, I think it was less than that. But anyway, when I received it, and I opened it that day, and I sat in my house, and cry because it was so pretty. And for somebody that you don't know, never seen before, and to come up with this, and it's so accurate, it's frightening. But this is Nancy Hager, and I want her to talk to you too.
It's great to be here in Vancouver. It's such a dream come true to me to be here with Jeni. I can't believe it. And like Jeni said, I was taking tap dance lessons. I had had some lessons, and my teacher was very interested in sharing with us the history of tap dancing. So she showed us many videos, and I got to see footage of Jeni in Hooray for Love. And after seeing that, I got your documentary, Living in a Great Big Way. If you haven't seen that, you have to see it. It's a fantastic film. And I was, Jeni's dancing was spectacular. I was just floored by it. And to hear Veered Nicholas say that you were one of the greatest dancers ever, coming from Veered Nicholas, is an extraordinary compliment. But it wasn't just your dancing, it was your optimism and your generosity and your gifts as a teacher. So many things. So I couldn't help but get even more interested. And then, like Jeni said, I came out to the Tap Festival in September. Then 6 weeks later, I decided to do watercolor paintings as opposed to those woodcuts that I'd been doing earlier. And I wanted to show Jeni at different stages in her life. So starting off with Jeni as a 7-year-old, and then ending up with Jeni as an 89-year-old. And I think of the book as a story about following your dreams and your talent and keeping on going despite adversity and inspiring love in the world, because I think that's what we do. So for me, it's taught me a lot of new things and changed my style. Sitting up here is like the last place you can usually find me. I feel comfortable sitting at my drawing table or walking in the woods or riding my bicycle. And being on a stage or doing tap dancing, even in front of my fellow students, it has been a big challenge for me. So the tap dancing has opened many worlds for me, and I'm really grateful for it.
Well, I just want to tell you how I got here. In the late 60s, in 69 when I came here, I had an organization called Jazz Carib. And we were traveling all over, down in the States, pardon me, to most of the army posts and a lot of millionaire clubs and private clubs all through the country. And we got stranded in New Orleans. And we were coming out of Los Angeles, and I had a company of 10. We had 5 dancers and 4 musicians, and one other person, counting me, made it 5. So what happened, we had a chance to, I had some friends in Chicago. In fact, I was born and raised there. So I decided to go back there rather than go back to Los Angeles where we came from after we got stranded. And so when I got there, I told a friend of mine that I needed to reform. So we reformed my group, and he had an agent who was interested in what I was doing. So they brought us up to Edmonton and Calgary. And so after we finished, we were supposed to come all the way here, but they hadn't, the agent hadn't finished making the booking. And so the kids, I thought, well, I don't want to have the same thing happen to us as it happened in New Orleans. So I decided to have them go home, and then I would come out here and go down to Los Angeles. So that's what I did. I got here on Easter Sunday, 1969, and as I came down Main Street, I saw the name of a friend of mine at a club that was then on Main Street at Pender and Main. It was called the Shanghai Jump. It was upstairs in that brown building, which is still there. And so I went to the hotel down on Pender that was near Burrard, which, you know, it's changed its name about 5 or 6 times now. So what happened was that I told the gentleman at the desk that I wanted to come out that night and go see my friend. And he says, oh, we're not open on Sundays. Our clubs are not open on Sundays. And I thought to myself, my God, where am I? In the boondocks someplace, you know? So it turned out that he said he convinced me to stay, and I was afraid that I might run out of money, so I told him, I said, well, I haven't got a lot of long green. But anyway, it turned out that I went back on Monday, and on Monday, I not only found the gentleman that I was looking for, who was the MC at the club, but two of my ex-students. And they said, please don't go, stay here and teach. You've got a larger variety of talent of teaching things like Afro and jazz and tap and all that sort of business. And we'll get you some students. So this was on Tuesday, I think. No, yeah, Monday night. That's because I went back on Monday. So on Thursday, I found a place to open. And when I opened my studio on Thursday, that studio, I should say, on Thursday, I had 20 students. And I haven't left yet, so I've been here all that time. And it's just wonderful. I do love Vancouver. I'm so happy to be here. If you want to ask us some questions about us and what we've done, you may, and then we'll finish the, the thing, because I want you to see this one number anyway, if you don't see all of it. Yes. Somebody want to say something? What? No question? Yes.
I have a whole lot of questions if no one else does.
Okay.
I was there last night and it was so good. I didn't hear enough. I came back. And I was wondering what you did in the chorus line, how you got into the movies.
Well, it's a different kind of thing. When I first started dancing professionally, I was in the chorus, and then I started doing things on my own, and I was a soloist. And so when I came out here, my foster sister and I had an act, and when we came to Hollywood, I should say, the gentleman decided to use each of us in a different way because we danced. I did the tapping and singing, and she did what was called the, I can't remember the name. Anyway, she did the hoochie coochie and stuff. And so he separated us because we had put it together, and he didn't think it worked that well. And that's how I got into the movies, but I did chorus work before. And I was an imitator of Josephine Baker, if any of you had heard about her, and steps that the girls were doing in the line, but she would mug, do all those kind of things. And that's what happened. And I got that chance to do that when I went into the show, the first really professional show that I did with Count Basie and his orchestra in Chicago in about 36, 37, something like that, yeah.
Lovely.
Yes, sir. Mr. Howard.
Is the new girl gonna be all right?
I'm sure you'll like her, boss. Nita, do that last number for Mr. Howard. Not bad, huh? All right.
Why did you leave the movies? Because
Why?
The shots I saw of you, like you were so talented.
Yeah.
Like you could dance and you could sing and you could act and the whole thing. And I mean, the shot of Lena Horne, you're easily as good as her. Better. And so why did you leave the movies?
Well, miss, I want to tell you, I didn't leave the movies. They left me. Because at that time, you know, we lived in a black and white world in the States. And they even cut out a couple of my numbers because of my brown face. So I didn't get a chance to be Ginger Rogers or some of the other people that Eleanor Powell and Ann Miller because of that one thing. And I didn't leave. I had to leave because I didn't do. But you see, I did do a number of movies. I played the servant parts, and I did the African ones. I did Arabian ones, and I did Alibaba, and I did Arabian Nights, and a number of others. And then I also did some, all at that time, later on, they did some all black, what we call all black movies, and I did about 4 or 5 of them. And then I went into Amos and Andy, which was a wonderful group on the screen at that time too. So, but it wasn't that I left. I mean, they just left me, I think.
Because you sure have the talent. You can
Oh,
just
thank
see that you were born with it. It's in your genes.
Jenny, tell the audience the Eleanor Powell story of Brother Melody of 36.
What?
Tell them what the Eleanor Powell story of Brother Melody of 36.
Oh, yes. What happened about, after I did Hooray for Love, which is the first movie on here with Ann Southern, my manager, whose name was Earl Dancer, he had been the one who brought Ethel Waters to the fore. And so he was dickering with MGM and Fox Studio for me to get a contract. And so what happened that the day that 20th Century merged with Fox, he heard about it, and he knew that the man that was at Fox at that time was not going to be the president of Fox, so he went to MGM and got me the 5-year contract there. And so what was happening at that time, the MGM studios were throwing a great big banquet for all of the leading major cities' mayors. And they all came to Hollywood on the stage there, and everybody that was supposed to be in the, what they call them, the Ziegfeld, not the Ziegfeld Falls, but anyway, the numbers that they did, it was a movie series, and I was supposed to be in it. So the day that we all entertained at this wonderful banquet, I stopped the show, which was another thing that had been happening. As you can see, they call me showstopper. And the next day, and Eleanor Powell was working in New York, and she came all the way from New York to Hollywood to perform on this particular time. And so she didn't get on, she was to close the show, you see, and I went on before her and outdanced her. And so the next day, my manager called and said, went down, it was called rather by the head of the studio and said, "We're terribly sorry, but we can't complete your contract with Jenny, but we've got something else she can do." And so they sent me to London, but they took me out of the major thing. That's what happened. I went over there and I had a wonderful time. It was great. It was a different world too over there, and I enjoyed it. And that's what happened to my contract with the MGM Studios, and how I lost it, and how I didn't get a chance to do 5 years in one place. Yeah.
Nancy, tell us a little bit about your background as an artist and how
Yeah.
you came to this place as to write this book. What's your background?
Let's see. Well, my mother said I was coloring our rug when I was 1 year old, so I started pretty early. Then I studied art in college and got a graduate degree in printmaking. I really cuts and lithographs, so I was focusing on those for some time. And I really worked mostly on scientific and natural history sorts of subjects for a long, long time. I love nature, I love biology, so I was focused on that for the first part of my illustration career. And so I was doing more science, animal sorts of books. And maybe in the last 5 years I've been doing more work with figures. And also I had been working only in black and white, and now I'm working more in color. So it's been something I've been very focused on for a long time, from my early school years. And I did teach drawing and printmaking and illustration for about 10 years too. So I do like to change media quite a bit. You know, working with the wood is it offers more resistance. It's a little harder to do physically, and then so sometimes it's nice to use washes of watercolor and have a different effect. So I do tend to work with different media.
So now that you've done this book on Jenny, does that mean you get free dance classes all over the United States and Canada?
That would be great. I could barter for that.
Anyone else? Yes.
Is there any thought in your mind of either expanding this present book with more illustrations of Jenny, because you do it so well, or putting out a volume 2, or, you know?
I have,
Because there's so many facets of Jenny's career that I'm sure that there's lots more fodder. I know I'd love to see a picture of Jenny, drawing of Jenny and Fats Waller, for instance, that she's very fond of.
I think that's a great idea. And I agree, there's limitless material.
Tell us some of the juicy stories about the Hollywood stars. Like Fats Waller, we want to hear all the dirt. And, because obviously.
Well, I'll tell you, I really couldn't tell you, because you see, we didn't socialize. But I wish I had known of something that I could tell you, but I don't really know anything. And incidentally, Al Jolson, his wife was Ruby Keeler, wonderful dancer, and Eddie Cantor, and Al Jolson were the nicest people that I met. Al Jolson invited my manager, Earl Dancer, and myself to his home and had served us dinner. I was never in the houses of anybody on the set except one young man that I met in a movie that I did called Arabian Nights, and he was hiding under the fact that he was Jewish, and he was not letting people know. And he told me he'd bring me over, and he wanted me to come over. And my cousin was in the army. This was in '43, before the army, just when they first went into the army. And so he told me that I mustn't tell him because he had the wonderful candlesticks, that the Jewish people have and all. And he says, "No, when I brought you over, don't you talk about my house." And I said, "I won't." But in a sense, he was suffering the kind of thing that we were suffering, And I think they're the only three people that were really people. Because I'll tell you something. I got one. I got one. When I was in the very beginning with RKO, Bill, Fats, and myself had rooms. Our dressing rooms were in the same building that Astaire and Rogers were in. The studios that we rehearsed in were in the same building. And so when we would rehearse, Astaire and Rogers would come and watch us, and when they would rehearse, we would go and watch them. And when I went into Easter Parade, Mr. Astaire even did a scene with me and never recognized me or said anything about the fact that we had been together earlier. So that was something that somebody told me, since this has happened so many years ago. He said, "Well, Astaire was very shy," and I thought, well, that was no excuse for that kind of behavior, because I had the lines with him, and all. But that was, as I said before, it was a BLACK and a WHITE world, and that was all about it. There's nothing you could do. So that was kind of the way it was.
Jenny, was it John Hall in Arabian Nights invited you to his home?
Huh?
Was it John Hall who invited you to his home, Arabian Nights?
No.
Oh, it wasn't?
No. I'd had, I can't remember his name now, but there was a young man who worked in one of the clubs there, and he liked this particular person, and I used to go, and that was another person that I met. He's a big star. I can't remember his name at the moment, but we used to go and listen to this particular person play in the theater, and he was nice. I never went to his house, of course, but we would go. My first husband and he and I would go through.
Jenny, sorry, but you should tell them in Arabian Nights, you're hard to pick out sometimes. And it's such a glorious Technicolor print, of course, we'll be playing on Turner now. If anybody happens to catch Arabian Nights, tell them where you are.
Okay.
You remember? The role you play in Arabian Nights?
Yeah.
It's hard to find you sometimes, If anybody's looking for you, they'll only play one. Maybe
in Arabian Nights?
Arabian Nights, yeah.
I was a maid. You saw me.
I know, but tell them about where in the movie it takes place or something, so they'll be able to watch it. So be able to keep an eye out for you. Tell them exactly what.
What's
you
the
remember?
What part of the movie do you appear in? What scene is it?
Almost every scene, lots of the scenes in Arabian Nights, yeah. With Sabu and with, what's her name, the lady who was the lead in it? I've got it all written down, I can't remember. 50 years, 60 years ago? Don't ask me those questions. Get out of here! Yes. button for you. Huh? Yes.
Hello, Jenny.
Hi.
I'm Ron. You remember me?
Yes, of course.
This is a little personal story I'd like to share.
Can't hear
Go
you. Come
there.
on up here.
You
Come
want
on
me
up,
to go
Jenny.
on the stage?
Yes.
Okay.
Right there. Oh, he's gonna use the mic. Okay.
No, he's not.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, this really is a pleasure for me. I've often looked to the opportunity when I could just give a little personal story. I've known Jenny since she came to Vancouver in 1969. I was a young person in Liverpool, England, long before the war, and I was coerced into tap dancing by my little childhood sweetheart. Anyway, that came to an abrupt end when the war started. So there was an interruption there. However, dancing, I've never forgotten those steps. And in 1969, just prior to 1969, I wanted to get up to speed on my tap dancing. In the meantime, I'd been ballroom dancing, and I had my athletic career as an international runner. However, tap dancing has always been deep in my heart. And when Jenny came to Vancouver, I saw an article in a newspaper that she was going to have some tap dance lessons. So I sought out the studio, and I landed in this old warehouse at the foot of House Street, just opposite the Kettle of Fish. That warehouse is no longer there, but it had a floor that sloped down. So it was great for tap dancing because you shuffle down the floor. Anyway, but I took lessons from Jenny, and I always remember when she first came to me and I said, well, I'm from Liverpool. She said, well, I danced in a big performance in Liverpool at the Empire Theatre. So we had a connection. However, she certainly, in those few months that I tap danced with her and then moved on to other studios, she certainly brought me up to speed. But we've been great friends in this interim period. And I remember in 2002 at the Coquitlam Arts Festival at the Massey Theatre, I performed in that show, and Jenny was in the audience. And after the show, Jenny came to me and threw her arms around me, and she had tears in her eyes. However, she said, well, I certainly brought you up to speed. My speed is still with me, thank goodness.
Okay.
So,
okay, now listen, you stay here because we're going to do something. Because I want these people to see my number. Come on down here. Give me your book.
Watch out.
Hold this. Okay, now you guys spread out.
Okay, watch out for the cord.
I see it. I'm going to dance between you. Anybody, any tap dancers? Susan? Come on, anybody else? Okay, I have invented a time step that fits any time step you can do. Any time step. I have invented mine is different, and I want them to do their own. And we're going to do, let me explain it. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, break. Okay, whatever you want. Now you do your own step, and I'm going to do mine, and that's not my break. I've got to step. Okay, can you time step? 1, 2, 1, 2, go. 2, don't rush. 3, 4, 5, 6, break. Too much time time, and I really want you to see the rest of this, so you'll watch it. And when I'll yell when I tell you when the numbers come. Okay. Okay? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Hang on, please.
Yes, ma'am, this boss.
Jenny?